Okay, it's Dave from Amplify, and I'm talking to Chris Cuffaro, who is the world's greatest photographer. He just told me that just before. The world's greatest photographer. First of all, I just want to say, just before we start this interview, that I'm irritated by Chris and other people like him because basically, Quincy Jones just died, and they said he was nominated for 80 Grammys.
Right.
80. And
Yep.
and he's done everything in his whole life. And then Chris comes along, and I get the press release, and he's shot every artist, and he's slept with them and lived with them, and he's carried their kids. He's done everything, and I think to myself, I'm 66, and I think, what exactly did I do again? I think I went to the shop when I was 22 and I bought a milkshake, but apart from that, I can't think of anything momentous. So that's where we start. Where we start is
Yep.
they tell me you're a storyteller. So let's start at the very beginning. Hang on, let me get my questions up here. Let's start at the very beginning. And have you always wanted to be a professional photographer?
I started shooting at 10 years old
Really?
and knew what I was going to do right
So
from
you've
the
been
first
shooting
roll.
for 25 years?
No, I wish. How about 54 years? And
Fucking hell. You're an
I
old man.
started my business at 12 years old, officially a business at 12, had clients, shot my first magazine cover at 16, started shooting
What
concerts at
camera? What,
16.
an old Olympus, or was it pre-Olympus?
Yeah, well, the first camera I bought was an Olympus OM1 at 18.
I remember
And
them.
yep, got rid of it quickly when I moved to Los Angeles at 21 and started getting Nikons and Hasselblads.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I say this all the time to my friends and people I meet. I just talked to an Uber driver about this. I've been blessed to do what I love for 54 years, and I love it more today than the day that I started it.
That's fantastic. Well, life should be like that, really. If you get into the conscious side of it, you just keep on. It's like you keep on finding more of you, so you keep on living more of you if you're present. If you don't get caught up in
Yeah,
the whole ego of it.
exactly. And my thing is, because I mentor lots of young photographers and creatives and businesses and everything. My rules are simple. I don't. You don't need to. You don't need. It's not going to be easy. Whatever you decide you choose to do in life, but you got to have fun. And since I started so young, my inner child, stopped growing at 12 years old. So whenever I pick up a camera, I'm 12-year-old Chris, and
Yeah,
oh my God, I get to take pic. I still get to do this.
yeah.
And, I've been blessed to have many crazy moments in my life that I still look back and kind of go, oh my God, that's just, I'm blessed, but I worked hard for it. It wasn't handed to me.
Yeah, well, I think I agree with the work hard, absolutely. I think rather than have fun, I'd probably say you need to be you, whatever you is, and if you're you, even if it's sad, you have your experience of it, and so
Yeah.
authentic's probably more the go from my perspective. But I understand what you're saying, and it's a very conscious perspective to say, keep on enjoying what you're doing because you're in the moment, basically experiencing what you're doing rather than in your head thinking back to telling too many stories to people and having them all sit around you when all you want to do is get out there and shoot the next show. Okay, so the journey
Yeah.
the journey starts at 10 or 12, and where does it go from there?
So when I got into high school, which is like what, 14, no, 15 years old, I didn't go to school. I told everybody I didn't need math or English because I was going to take pictures. So what
Who
do I
does?
need to know that stuff
Who
for?
does? Who does?
So I started my business. I was doing this weekend business of shooting at modeling schools and modeling agencies. And I started photography because I wanted to shoot girls. And so it's the reason I do what I do was to meet and shoot girls. Like I'm a young kid. And so I wanted to shoot for Vogue. I wanted to shoot for Playboy. So that's what I was leaning towards. But on the side, at 16 years old, I started shooting concerts for fun because I was lucky to grow up in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And in the 60s and 70s, we had Bill Graham and we had the best concerts and I saw the best bands. And my older brother took me to shows, and we would, I grew up like there's a list of bands that I saw on my blog that you could see, and you'd be like, you shake your head, like I was blessed to see stuff. So I wasn't thinking about music photography, but I was doing it for fun. It was fun. But I wanted to be a fashion photographer. That was my goal.
And that whole live music photography, I presume it was the same back in those days, is sort of a low light, sort of maybe not as much smoke machine and light, but
But
they
no,
had.
but you remember, you're old like me.
I am.
You
I'm
remember
older than
back in
you.
those.
I'm 66,
I'm 64.
so
So,
we're in the
but
same.
you remember we had the manual focus.
We had the
We had the,
manual focus everything and everything
so
that
it was
you didn't have the ability like people today have no idea about not being able to see the image and take another one because you missed something. I mean,
right.
but you've got to use this metal bloody unit and the Hasselblads, all of them were the same no matter how
Yeah.
good they were. And then you've got to change the film and pull the
Yep.
film out, protecting it, and then take
Yep.
it back to some sort of dark room and
Yeah.
go through a
It's a
process
process
that
to it all.
it was when you say effort, I mean people talk these days about, oh, I shot 500 images and I had to edit and it took me a couple of hours. Well,
Yeah.
back in those days, you're praying that the result comes out the way you want it to
Right.
come out because you don't get
Yeah. So
another choice.
yeah, but that's what we were doing. And, I just knew from day one
Did-
that I was going to do this thing and this was going to be my life.
So with the cameras back in those days, like you think about today and what you can do with light and
Huh.
and all that, were the professional cameras, could you do similar stuff with them manually, or is it a chalk and cheese situation?
No, it was, and you remember, back in those days, we called ISO, ASA, and you could only, the most you could push a film was 1600 maybe without it getting stupid grainy. So you were limited to, if the lighting was bad at the show, it made it difficult to capture anything because the lighting was dark or moody or something. So nowadays, these kids, the kids that I mentor, they've got, 6400 ISO and crazy lenses, digital autofocus. It's like it's easy. It's easy nowadays. I don't care what anybody says. But yeah, but I enjoy, I tell people, I'm glad I experienced all that. I experienced the new stuff. I experienced the
And
stuff in the future. I'm not a reluctant to anything. I'm not that I'm not a technology person, but I don't run from it. I am kind of embrace it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We mentor. We've got a probationary area of our photographers, and we mentor
Yeah,
some of those sort of people. And it's easier to slap someone to sort of say when they're not framing correctly, because they've got
right.
a digital camera and you can see what you've done. And if you've missed a corner or whatever, just take a step back or take a step forward. You can't very well say, well, I wasn't. I had to wait and go home and print the film to see what happened. So yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
But I was lucky. I was lucky, and I look back on this a lot about how lucky I was to grow up in a time in photography when my heroes were Richard Avedon, Irving Penn, Peter Lindbergh, Patrick Demarchier, Henry Diltz, Jim Marshall, like the list goes on and on. Then when I moved to Los Angeles, I got to meet a lot of these photographers because I was working at a black and white lab. So I had conversations with Helmut Newton, Bruce Weber, Greg Gorman, Matthew Ralston, Herb Ritts. So I grew up in a time that I feel was rich, rich in the creativity and the usage of film. And, I worked at a color lab for 4 years and a black and white lab for 4 years. So I learned everything and it was really rich in that. And so for me, it was amazing. It was like such a great journey.
So you've kept yourself abreast of the learning. In
Yeah.
every
Oh, to this
in every
day.
in every era, you've made it a point to learn what you need to learn about the new stuff that's coming on board and how to use it and how to get the most out of it.
That's where I tell people, like, if you download and look at my app, we launched this a year ago. We just added a camera to it, which I love to death. But we're talking right now. I'm like trying to blend old school with new school, like this blend of let's do old school photography, but with new school technology. And we're next year we're doing an AR VR exhibition. We're talking about doing AR, VR photo sessions where you could be at the shoots with me. We're trying to figure out a way to do new technology with, my old school mentality.
That's fantastic. That's terrific. Uh,
Just
okay.
having fun, just having fun.
Well, I think though, you know, the challenge for me is always there's a moment and there's collaboration with it, right? And so all the stuff
One.
that you do and don't do and all this sort of gear is all the creative stuff. So like in the doing phase, in the being phase, that's where life lives, in this
Right.
observance of the doing. So the doing that we
Right.
talk about is really what we're doing, and that's an adventure, and we're all trying to do something. But if we achieve this level or that level or this level, that makes no difference because it's actually like the yogis sit under trees and meditate and have the fullness of an
Yeah.
existence. So it's really
No, one.
the only difficulty I have with these conversations to some degree is that a lot of people that aren't present see them as standards, and I didn't meet and he did, and they see themselves as not meeting up, as I said at the start, not meeting up to the standard because he's my age, but he's done all of that, and I've just done this little bit over here.
Right.
And really
When I was younger, though,
collaborating
when
with
I was
nothing.
younger, yeah, but when I was younger, I was like that. I was young. I wanted to be liked. I wanted people to,
That's
I
right.
was in my 20s.
I
Since I
agree.
started at such a young age,
I agree.
but
I
when I
agree.
got older, I'd say when I hit
You
40 and
detach.
beyond,
You detach.
more now than ever, I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. I don't
Me
care what,
too. Me too. But
like,
mine even went to the extent of losing for years and years and years because in the losing, I was
yeah,
experiencing an opening that I
yeah,
wasn't getting when I was just
yeah,
achieving and pushing and all that sort of stuff. So I got off on losing to the degree that it was sort of became an adventure to go there like a an African adventure. Okay, let's talk about the artists. Okay, let's start.
uh-oh.
Who was the first artist you sort of came across that was one of your mega artists and you shot him and you thought, gee, I've really made it. When did that take?
Um, So my first official music shoot was a jazz keyboard player named Joe Zawinul from Weather Report. And if people know jazz fusion, I grew up on jazz fusion. My favorite band was Return to Forever, things like that. But my second official shoot was Maurice White from Earth, Wind and Fire.
Oh,
And he was my hero. I saw Earth, Wind and Fire six
oh,
times when I was in high school. They were God, still is my favorite band.
yeah.
And spending the day meeting Maurice White changed my life, hanging out with him, talking to him. I was hanging out with my hero and taking his picture. Then a couple months after that, I got to shoot and spend the day with George Harrison, my favorite Beatle. So next thing I know, in the first
How
six
did where,
months of
where did
this,
that come about? How did that come about? Were they touring America?
uh, okay, so I'll tell you this. I got to tell you this story. Actually, I need to tell you this story.
Good.
So back in the day, I don't know if you remember, there was a mag in America. There was a magazine called Musician Magazine. It was geared towards musicians, not Rolling Stone, not
Yep,
not the
yep.
rock and roll type of thing, but
Not for the
musicians.
public, more musicians.
Yeah, and so the photo director slash art director slash creative director was a man named Gary Kupke. And I sent out a little promo card with my photo of a musician producer on it. He liked it, hired me to do the first job with Joe Zawinul. Then he liked that, and he hired me to do the Maurice White one. And then he says to me after those two shoots, he goes, "You're my West Coast photographer. You're doing everything." So from that point on, I was shooting all these things. And sad to say, Gary
How
just
old were
passed
you?
away. Let me say this: I was 25, but I got to say this. This last April, I lost Gary to a heart attack at 68 years old, and he made me what I am today, and I
Oh,
owe him
yeah.
everything. And he knew it then, and he knew it now. He gave
Rest
me,
in peace.
opened every door at every record label. Then he left that magazine and started Spin Magazine for Bob Guccione Jr. Then he left that magazine and he started Vibe Magazine for Quincy Jones. And so he made me what I am today. I always owe him everything. And those kinds of shooting for a magazine got me to meet the publicist, which then got me to meet the record label. So that the art directors, and that just started this journey of hustle of just getting around. And so those were the things. And then within the first year, I shot most of my heroes within the first year.
Really? So
Yeah.
Harrison, come back to Harrison. You were going to tell me how you met, why you met
Yeah.
Harrison.
So, yeah. So I don't know about you, but I worshiped the Beatles when I was a kid, and George Harrison was my favorite Beatle, right?
You know,
So
we had black and white TV that went off at 11 o'clock and three newspapers, and so anything. I was saying to people when Thriller came out and that video, you know, that was like unbelievable, mind blowing stuff. You know, they come out
yeah,
today, but you know, back in that
yep,
day, so I can appreciate the Beatles process because they were
yeah. So
bigger than life.
I'll never forget it. Is that the a famous publicist at Warner Brothers Record named Bob Merlis, who's still around to this day.
Mm.
The it was the record Cloud Nine was going to come out, and Bob says to me, I had to set up in the conference room, very little room. He set up in the conference room, take your pictures. You get 15 minutes, Chris. That's it. I'm like, Bob, please more. I need more. And he goes, you get 15 minutes. Relax. That's it. So
The
we set
life,
everything up. We're wait.
the life of a live music photographer, by the way, people don't realize. You get three songs,
Well, but this
15
wasn't
minutes.
live. I mean, this is a portrait session.
I know
So
that. I know.
I'm like, so I'm just sitting there kind of going, okay, we'll wait, no worries. And he shows up and he walks in, and I'm like, nice to meet you, Mr. Harrison. And we ended up shooting for 2 hours, and we ended up, but in that 2 hours, we probably only shot pictures for the 15 minutes. I spent most of the time talking to him and asking him stupid questions about the movie Hard Day's Night because it was my favorite movie. And so we just talked about music and the people. He played with some musicians that I had shot at that time, Jim Keltner and different people that we just started talking. And after 2 hours, Bob says to me, he goes, you were so lucky. I go, I know. I go, trust me, that was the greatest that at that point, that was the greatest day of my life.
What
And
year? What
and
year?
then 1985.
85.
And
So
so a week
they've
later,
been finished 15 years by then.
yeah, but a week later, Bob calls me up and says, "Hey, we're doing a music video for a song. Can you come down and shoot that?" I said, "Yeah." And I go down, and to walk into the sound stage and the backstage area where people makeup and everything, and I walk into the room and there's George, and he remembers me and goes, "Hey, Chris, how's it going?" You're just like, "Oh, kill me now. We're good." Yeah, and I ended up talking to him again for another hour alone, and it was magical. It was everything you dreamed it would be. Your hero. You're like,
Anything
and every
John
musician.
related? Because John had died 5 years earlier.
I think so. I don't remember,
Okay.
but what was crazy was all through the following years. If you talk to any musician in our generation, let's say, there a badge of honor was if you played with a Beatle, any one of the four, if you played with a Beatle, that street cred, that is like you're knighted. So me going, I shot him twice. Oh, that's it, Chris. You're good. You're good. And because of that, I could drop his name when I shot Robbie Robertson. Hey, Robbie, I just shot George Harrison, and Robbie's like, you know, it became a thing. And then fast forward many years later, Olivia Harrison contacted me after he had passed away. And she said, she sent me this beautiful email. And actually, I was on my way back from Australia. And she said, I'd really like to see the photos you have. And so we ended up meeting in LA in Santa Monica, had a beautiful meeting for a couple hours. I showed her what I had, proof sheets, and I had some stuff scanned, and she's just like, "How much do you want for this?" And I go, "You can have it." I go, "He blessed me with his
God
time
bless. God
and
bless. That's lovely.
energy." I go, "Olivia,
Lovely
this is
stuff.
yours. Use it however you want, when you want. I don't care." She gave me a big hug and said thank you, and I had to, for me it was like full circle. Like I had to give back because George gave me so much. So it was a beautiful experience, and I've had a million of those amazing, crazy. I call them holy fuck moments. Where like I'm in
Uh, uh,
situations.
uh, uh,
Yeah,
in all seriousness, I've got a fuck quiz, and I talk about fuck moments in my conscious side, and the fuck
yeah,
moments are really these things that just sort of take your breath away. When you're conscious, you have them all day, but
right.
they're the sorts of things that. So that's the first time I've heard anyone else make the comment. So good on you.
Well, because like you got to understand, like, and I've done this in interviews a lot, and I've done this in my own talks. I just wanted to be a photographer. So 12-year-old Chris just wants to take pictures. I wanted to be a fashion photographer. I wanted to be Richard Avedon. So a lot of this is just by, accident in a say. So I
But
didn't set out, go, oh, I want to shoot musicians
no, I get
someday. I'm
it.
going to shoot people.
This period's you sort of 25 to 35 or something like
Yeah.
that. And that's usually in a person's life a pretty
Yep.
fucked up time because they're trying to establish themselves as who are they,
Yep.
to generate some assets, generate some promotions, get here and there,
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. So it's not usually a time when people are giving away stuff, like
Yeah,
you.
and I've been a workaholic my whole life, so it was my motto is my to this day my motto is work first, play later. Work first, play later. Work first, play.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I always, it was always work, 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 and because I want to be Richard Avedon. I want to be a
yeah,
great
yeah.
photographer. My goal since I was 10 was I simple goal, which is I want to create the greatest body of work while I'm alive. You can judge me after I'm gone. That's
Chris,
it. That's my
Chris,
goal from day one.
Chris, you're Chris Cuffaro. You don't need to judge other people. You're Chris Cuffaro. Let's go through it.
Yeah.
Let's go through a few of the others. Maybe you can just run them down like a
Okay.
bit of
I'll
a
make them
timeline.
quick.
Some of you, like people are going to be listening potentially, one or two maybe, and they're going to if you share it, that is, if I share it, no one will listen, and they're going to sort of say, well, I wonder who he has shot because they're not going to read the publicity and they're not going to, they're going to sort of this might be their first experience of
Right.
the great man.
Well, what I like to, one thing I got to say is like when I started my greatest hits project 14 years ago, I simply say this to everybody. Everybody, and I mean everybody, has seen at least one of my photos. Everybody. They just don't know it's me. And so I laugh about I've tested me through the years. Oh, really? Where have I seen your photos? And the first one I have to announce is George Michael Faith. Like everybody's seen George Michael Faith.
Absolutely.
Relax. And then I
Absolutely.
did Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and I did Nirvana and it goes down the list goes down. So I tell people all the time, and my music photography is only a third of my work. There's two-thirds of even better stuff, but I'm known for the music work. So to me, I just meeting my heroes like Carlos Santana and Stanley Clark and Phil Collins. I mean, shot him a few times, which I worshiped Phil Collins back in the day. Spending time with them and telling me stories about photography and photo sessions with the photographers that I looked at, or it was just to this day, I still love it to this day. I
I
always
think
tell people it's not going to change for me.
one of the things about superstars that I found is if you're normal, it's like, they just lap it up because they don't get enough normal in their life. They get all these people
Right.
that thinking that they're wasting their time or putting them up on a pedestal or trying to suck them for something or other. So if you're normal, especially in questions, they do so many questionnaires. If you ask them, the normal questions, that you're interested in, etc., they tend to stick around and want to talk for longer. So I hear what
Well,
you're saying.
I've had a tradition since I started, and one of my traditions is, and I have it on my websites, is everybody I've ever shot, everybody in the music world, I've asked the same question to. I start out every photo shoot with the same question. What was your first concert? And the answers I've gotten through the years are unreal, unbelievable. And so depending on how old the person is, you got, different generation answers. So I've always had this curiosity about, I always tell people I could talk about more about music than photography, is that I loved hearing these musician stories and uh just hey, I saw that you played with so and so. I was at that concert. Tell me about that. And they would just tell you, oh yeah, I was like I got up, jammed and did it. So it was always that was the fun part. That was like the bonus to what I was doing. Like the pictures were just that was the easy part. Shoot for 10 minutes. Now let's talk for an hour, that kind of thing. But it was always I just loved that and again I tell people all the time I nobody ever gave me a bad time, nobody. I've never had a bad experience with anybody
I think
you know
that's usually a reflection, like a mirror. If you turn up in a way with an energy, you'll probably get the same energy in return. That's probably what you
yeah.
experienced. So
The
so the,
only person that came to a shoot and was a little cranky was Nick Cave, but that's Nick Cave.
He's got a
You know what I mean?
got a rep. He's got a reputation.
Yeah,
So
and it's like, so if he was nice, I would have been disappointed. Like I would have been like, you need to be
he,
cranky. So
well,
I said to Nick,
eccentric.
I go,
He's
yeah, I
eccentric.
said to
He
Nick
knows
at the
that.
time, this is 1991, I think. I said to Nick, I go, are you okay? And he goes, I hate doing photo shoots. I go, you know what? So do I. So let's just get this over with, and
But
so we can go on. Do what we really want to do?
when people are comfortable with themselves, they are
Yeah.
comfortable with everything, and when they're not comfortable with anything. So
Yep.
okay, so you've shot prolifically through the 80s, definitely 70s as a kid, as a young,
70s, yes,
but prolifically through the 80s,
and the 90s and the
the
2000s. I'm
90s.
still shooting.
No,
I'm
no,
still
but I'm
alive.
talking about prolifically. Like, there's a difference between turning up as an
Right.
eager young shooter and you're just about to go and see this Harrison for the first time and jam, and turning up as an experienced
Right.
guy that's done them all,
Yeah. So
shooting them.
I would say the period is, I'd say it starts in 85 and it dies down like the music industry in by 2000, because that's when Napster came along, the budgets went away,
All
the
the
labels
bullshit.
stopped doing photo shoots.
Yeah, yeah,
I always tell people back in 1991, my day rate was $20,000 a day plus expenses. Now you don't get anything. Now their friends are shooting the pictures. So it's different. It just, Napster technology killed all that,
yeah,
killed
yeah,
it.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I always tell people I used to be special. I'm not special anymore.
Well, I think that again, I'm not trying to convert, but I think that the difference is in the information age, basically,
Yeah,
people's minds, their thoughts are just much more all over the place. So to
yeah,
fix something down, like in the old days, where you say this has a value and this is the value, and someone can sort of comprehend that because it's pretty straightforward and slow, and yeah, I get that, and you can
yeah, yeah,
something. Now it's just like next, 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 next. So all the labels and everyone's just trying to feed in this TikTok sort of process of just trying to feed the next press release, and they can build it up and they can say whatever, and it doesn't have to have any depth. It just has to have words in it. Bit like
Well,
it.
I like to call it, we live in the content. I call it the content look at me world.
Yeah.
And it's like just everything is content. What I do is content. And then it's everything is like, look at me, please look at me, look at me, please look at me. And that's why I love doing my exhibitions, because it's a moment to stop, press the pause button. Now look at this, not me, look at this.
I am sure you say in your mentoring something that I think is a real problem with photography today is too
Yeah,
many people turn up and give it away. They turn up because they've got a bit of low self-esteem. So they say,
yeah,
"We shoot my show." And they say, yeah, because they think they're getting somewhere giving it away by
right,
building a friend or something. And what they're actually doing
right.
is they're killing the photography, because once someone gets something for free, it's hard for them to get it, pay someone else for it. They just,
Yep.
and then the extension of that is, and we see it all the time, free photography goes up and they got it for free. So they say, this photography is magnificent. And you look at it and there's fingers missing and there's neck of guitars missing and it's furry, and you're sort of saying this
Yeah.
magnificent. Yeah, I wish you could
Well,
look at the real photo.
that's why, like, my young photographers here in Australia and in New Zealand and in LA and in America, I always tell them I will not give you my opinion on your work unless you ask for it. But if you ask for it, you're going to get the hardcore
Absolutely.
truth. My
Absolutely.
mentor to this day, my mentor for 44 years, he's my big brother basically. He's not once given me a compliment
No,
in 44 years.
no.
I'll show him, go, look at this amazing photo of Nirvana. It's iconic, it's everywhere. And he'll just go, I don't like your composition. It needs some work. Go come back when you got something better. I'm like, oh my God, what do I have to do? Yeah. But I
But
love that. It makes me work harder.
but you
I
don't
can
need
handle
his
it.
affirmation. You want his
No,
information.
I don't. I don't need anybody's,
Yeah. Okay.
you know.
So how did you come to terms with just personally, like you're a conscious guy these days, or a more conscious guy
Yeah.
these days? How did you come to terms with the wow factors of everything that you were experiencing through that period, even the fact that you're in the elite photography category and you turn up and all that sort of stuff? How did you deal with that in the run? Because most people have problems with ego, and they go off and they take drugs, and they build a whole world around their their
Right.
their ego. Did that happen to you, or were you able to stay grounded
I've
through it?
I've been accused and told that I don't have an ego, and I basically my response always is I can't afford one. I don't have any money, so I can't afford one. And those cost money. So no, I've had some ups and downs in my career and in life, as we all do. I mean, but what I've always said, and I always will say, is photography, the creativity, the process is my Prozac. It's my antidepressant. So I've always turned to photography
Which
when
is
things are
great.
tough.
Which is an in the
Then
moment
I,
process, because you can't do
yeah,
photography properly without being there.
right. And again, you can ask any of my friends that know me. I'm never satisfied. I could shoot the greatest photo today and show everybody, and I'll
No
wake up tomorrow
photographer
going,
is. No photographer.
I wake up the next day
Okay.
just going, this is shit.
How would you describe your style, and how has it changed over all
Oh,
the period?
it's not changed. It all starts with Avedon, Irving Penn, and David Bailey. Simple,
Okay.
simple,
Okay.
simple, simple.
And
You look
what
at
is that
Avedon's work.
for people that don't know those people? What is that
Yeah.
in a descriptive fashion?
Yeah, it's the simplicity of lighting and classic portraiture, and then the what I call capturing the soul of the individual, as opposed. It's not about looking, and it's not about being perfect. Everybody, digital photography these days, everybody wants to be perfectly sharp, perfectly this, perfectly that, and it annoys the fuck out of me. And so I'll tell you a quick story. When I was 13 years old, um, I used to play basketball at a Buddhist church I grew up in San Jose, and I used to play basketball with my friends, a bunch of Japanese friends. And I was 13 years old. I met this Buddhist monk, and we had these incredible conversations and talking, and he just, I'm a curious kid my whole life. I'm curious. I want to know everything about everything. And this Buddhist monk taught me the philosophy of wabi sabi, which is the perfection of imperfection, that imperfection is perfection. And I latched on to that
Very
and
good.
like literally a pit bull, and was
Very
like, oh
good.
my God. I would, every time I ran into this monk at the church, I'd just be like, oh, tell me more. And so that really shaped my vision of art and creativity. Simple, simple, last the longest. How many people in this watching, listening, can hum a Beatles song? And then how many can hum a Frank Zappa tune? Not too many.
Not a,
So simplicity, looking at growing up with Avedon and Irving Penn just was everything. And Avedon to me is the greatest ever photographer ever, and his work lasts forever. And so to me, I looked at my work and I went, I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm not worried about perfection. If there's, I've done shoots with like, hey, there's an extension cord in the background, Chris. So what? I don't care. I got the moment though. I got the moment with that person, that subject. So to me, that's how I kind of
you can
always
take
looked
it
at it.
out these days. You can take it
Huh?
out. You can take it
I
out.
know, and I won't. So I tell people all the time, like I like mess. I like mess. I call it organized mess. Um,
Just to correct something, Chris Cuffaro and short story is an oxymoron. They don't go together. So just when you said, look, I've just got
Good,
a short story
good.
I'm going to tell you, I just don't think that.
I know.
Okay,
You know,
so
it comes with age.
comes with age. Listen, it does come with age. I walk into a supermarket and the guy's pricing stock, and I say, I used to come to this supermarket 30 years ago, and the fruit and veg was not there. It was, and he's looking at me as if to say, "Will you fuck off? I've got work to do." Okay, so when you say you've got lots of fans and they resonate with your photos, what percentage do you think is artist because you're shooting the biggest artists, and what
Right.
percentage is style? Your photos, do you think?
It's the artist, 100%.
So they come to
So
the artist,
yeah.
but,
So
but
day number here, I'll tell you another story. First day in Los Angeles, I'm 21 years old. 21 years old. I don't know anyone. I got my job at my black and white lab, and my boss gives me the rules of Los Angeles. And he says the first rule is it's not what you know, it's who you know. And it's not who you know, it's who you blow. So if you're gonna fuck somebody or get fucked by somebody, it better be somebody worth fucking or getting fucked by. And
Boom,
I
boom.
go, I'm looking at him, just shaking my head. Oh my God, what did I get into? Then the second thing he tells me, which is I've lived by ever since, it's not what you shoot, it's who you shoot. You could have the greatest pictures of a bunch of nobodies or shitty pictures of a bunch of somebodies, and they're going to look at the somebodies. Not one time in my exhibitions has somebody come to me and said, "What lens was that? What kind of light did you use here? What
Exactly.
f-stop?" They
Exactly.
come and they just go, "Oh my God, it's Chris Cornell, it's Nirvana,
Did you
it's
get
George
to talk
Michael."
to them and all this sort of stuff?
Yeah, yeah. What did they say? What were they thinking? They don't, no, nobody pays attention to the what lens, what camera, like you're just sitting there just kind of. So that saying, it's not what you shoot, it's who you shoot, for me applied to everything. If I'm going to shoot, like if I'm going to go shoot interiors of a hotel, which I loved doing back in the day, I'm going to go shoot the best hotel with the best interiors. I'm not going to go shoot a motel. If I'm going to shoot an actor or celebrity, I'm going to shoot Brad Pitt, not Bob Smith. So to me, that helped me a lot, was just that it's not
So,
what you shoot, it's who you shoot.
so that's we probably had the most live music for photos. We were used to shooting 1,000 shows
Yeah.
a year,
Yeah.
COVID. So we've shot a lot of stuff, and that impression is very good because we often said to people, shoot someone small and all this sort of stuff. Get some great photos, etc. But what you're
Yeah.
saying about known and unknown is very true, and I agree with that. And it's a bit of a
I can show you a picture of a great, amazing live shot of a great performance by a band that you've never heard of. I can show you the same exact picture that's shittier, worse, and it's Jimmy Page on guitar. You're gonna go, Jimmy
and one,
Page.
I mean, especially these days, one's got 10,000 views and one's got 150.
Yeah, I don't even know who most bands are these days. I'm just yesterday I was having dinner with a friend of mine, and she was dropping names of bands that I should shoot while I'm here. I'm like, I never heard of anybody. I don't even know who
100
anybody is anymore.
100,000 songs go up on Spotify a day. So if you don't know them, that's
And I
something.
stopped trying to know them.
And that's a different discussion. We could have a whole discussion around
Yep,
streaming and how labels have changed the whole music industry and all that, because that's a
yep,
different discussion. And the same with TikTok and the need for
yep,
artists to be on
yep,
TikTok, and they all hate it,
yeah,
don't want to go anywhere near
yep,
it, and all
yep,
this sort of stuff. But that's but this has been forever. Labels
yeah,
and contracts. They've always
yep,
been nasty, sheep's in wolf's clothing. But we'll do that another time.
yep. Oh God, I got stories for days.
You have. Well,
I was in those rooms.
I am really interested in the concert side of things, so I hope we do have a relationship moving forward. Uh, which artist, music, and/or performance inspired you at the start, and what about today? So if you were
Wow.
talking about inspiration from a music perspective, because you shoot photography, but you were also
Right.
talking about the fact that you connected to the music.
Well, I grew up, so growing up in the Bay Area, I grew up what I always tell people, I grew up in the hood. So I didn't know I was white until I moved to Los Angeles. And so I grew up on R&B, funk, and disco. I grew up on Earth, Wind, and Fire, the Commodores, Brothers Johnson, Rufus and Chaka Khan, Graham Central Station, Tower. I grew up on the funk. So those were my heroes. So anytime I got close to meeting or shooting these guys later on was just, it was unreal. But then when the 80s came along, and I was into jazz fusion and stuff. But then, luckily in 1987 is when I meet George Michael, and I luckily got to tour the Faith Tour, did a bunch of shows and stuff. Shooting George and just watching him every night perform was just unbelievable. I mean, people don't realize. He still is one of the greatest I've ever been
Oh,
around
he's a
as a
king.
performer, songwriter, talent.
Yeah.
His shows were amazing, and I've
He
you know I've
stopped for
seen
two
amazing.
years, didn't he? He stopped. He had a contract
Yeah,
that was bad or something or other. Was
yep.
that Free
Between
Faith?
Wham and the Faith.
Wham in the Faith.
Yeah. So it was like seeing that. I always tell people I've been blessed. And then I spent 3 years documenting Jane's addiction on my own dime, following them around. And I worshiped Jane's addiction and being at the first Lollapaloozas and
Fantastic.
stuff. And then I was obsessed with Seattle in '91. I started going to Seattle. And so I got to shoot Nirvana and in live shows and stuff and wherever I could. They didn't, I did a lot of stuff where I wasn't paid. I didn't care. I was just like, I want to shoot this,
Fan.
it was like, I used to tell the managers or the publicist, is anybody shooting? No, Chris, you want to do it? I had such great relationships. I wouldn't get kicked out after 3 songs. I could stay the whole show and go anywhere I wanted to go. And so that was that goes back to not what you know, it's who you know. I knew the
Yeah,
right people and they
yeah.
gave me the access, you know. So that was a lot about what I call people is like, that's where I enjoyed shooting live shows because I was the only guy in the pit. I went to a concert last year, a year and a half ago to see Jane's Addiction at the Palladium, and there was like 25 kids in the pit shooting the first 3 songs, and I was like, "What the hell's going on?" Like I couldn't believe it. I go, and my friend goes, "What's wrong?" I go, "Look at all those people in the pit. There's more people in the pit than in the crowd." It was
Absolutely.
crazy.
And you think to
But like
yourself,
I don't shoot concerts anymore. It's past my bedtime.
you can't move in the pit, and you're supposed to take 30 shots of, different, and you're just jammed underneath
Yeah.
the dinger, so it's not a great thing. Okay, what about just before we move on, what about the Pearl Jam? Obviously, you're coming out to do a tour with Pearl
Yep.
Jam, which we'll talk about. Actually, we'll talk about that in a second. What are the
Yeah.
signature images you've taken? If you said
I
like
think
a faith, what are the
yeah,
signature?
when yeah, there's a lot. I have a lot of what I call iconic photos of icons. Everything from Perry Farrell as Jesus Christ Pose, which Chris Cornell wrote a song about it. There's not a photographer on the planet that can say Chris Cornell wrote a hit song about their photo, except me. So the things like that I take pride in, and there's a lot of these images, and there's a couple iconic photos of Pearl Jam that are coming up, and my picture of Eddie Vedder flipping the bird, and the group shot in the
That was a
fields,
good
and
shot. I like that shot.
yeah, and that was like because that was like again, I could talk for days and tell you tons and tons of stories. But I'm not going to and save you that. But there's these the Pearl Jam. I was blessed to got to know them and they trusted me and hung out with them. The highlight of all that 2 years was they let me. I asked them and they let me direct my first music video for the song Jeremy, which was never technically used, but you can still see it on YouTube.
Wow.
So that was my directing debut.
Okay, so that's the Pearl Jam. What are you looking forward to out of this exhibition you're coming out for? First of all, the exhibition's in Melbourne and Sydney,
Yes.
and it's a few dates in November. So if you're listening to this, check it out quickly and go and get some
So
tickets.
I'll quickly. So Melb's is the 13th to the 16th, and
Whereabouts?
this is
Whereabouts
huh?
in Melbourne?
The address is on my websites. It's in like not North Melbourne, but like it's in Melbourne.
No, no,
It's
no.
just like
Yep,
all
yep,
the information's on my websites.
yep.
The But this is my fifth and sixth exhibition in Australia in Sydney. In 2018, I did George Michael. In 2019, I did Grunge and then Michael Hutchins. And then 2022, I did Straight Up Greatest Hits, which is every little bit of everything. And so this is Pearl Jam we're doing in Melbourne and then Sydney the following week. And just kind of taking advantage of the band being on tour and coming into town. I haven't talked to those guys in 25 years, so I have no idea. But I just thought it would be fun to do. I did this Pearl Jam exhibition. I did it in Los Angeles in 2019, and it went over really, really well. The Pearl Jam fans are very passionate, very, very passionate.
Definitely are.
You know what I mean? I think of them as like, Grateful Dead fans. They just are really on top of everything. So
Well, I
I'm
think that I
excited
think
about it.
I think that I tell young artists about just concentrating on individuals and making them advertisers, your fans, because
Yeah,
if they're advertisers, they'll bring people sort of in a committed sense rather than these clickbait sort of stuff. And
yeah,
over the course of time, especially with bands like Pearl Jam and all the major bands as they hang around, it's baked in. It's almost generational. It's a bit like Gaza and bloody Israel. It's like it's baked in. You just love these people, and you could go there when they're 70, as we've seen with some of these concerts when they come on out, and they don't
yeah,
quite hit the notes anymore and all that sort of stuff. They've usually got a decent show, but you forgive
yeah,
them for everything. In fact, there's a a great, what's his name, Frank Sinatra story, where he was 80 or something like that. And he's doing a show somewhere, or he's just near the end or whatever, and he's in Las Vegas, and he forgot the words. He's up on stage and he forgot the words, and he just stopped there, and he was sort of, hammering in something like, someone said, "We got this,
Yeah.
Frank," and the crowd started singing for him, and they just sang
Yeah.
a song for him. And he got back into it, and away he went. But it was just a "We got you, Frank." We got you. All that sort of.
Yeah.
So I think that that's the point. The point is, it's almost like tribal, when you've got that sort of support like these bands. So you couldn't do anything like Trump. You couldn't do anything to turn them off. No matter what you did, they'd still
Right.
be turning up. So, and that's a
Well,
great.
what I love is so I deal with a lot of the fans of musicians and a lot of the ones that are dead, like and the fans of George Michael. I've met so many of them and they become friends. The fans of Michael Hutchins, I've got friends. The fans of, Nirvana or Chris Cornell or, a lot of these bands that I've, had my time with them and created some iconic photos of them. But I cannot wait to meet these Pearl Jam fans. And I've told my gallery partner in this behind the gallery that I said, I can't wait to ask these people like what their favorite song is
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
what was the best
yeah,
show
yeah.
they saw of Pearl Jam. I love that stuff because
Me too. Me too.
that's why I do these exhibitions. It's for the fans.
Where'd you
That's
where'd
it.
you shoot in excess?
My first shoot was 1988 in the middle of the George's Faith tour. I went to Ottawa, Canada, right when it was like the first shows for the North American tour for Kick. One of my real good friends back in the day got me hired, and I spent like 3 days. I shot the dress rehearsal, I shot the show, got to meet Michael for the first time, and Michael let me try on his Doc Martens, and from that point on, I wore Doc Martens, and that's when I got to know them. And then years later, in '93, is when I did the shoot with that's rather famous of Michael. If you look at that, I always tell people, I think it's the album In Excess Hits or whatever it's called, the greatest hits or something, that covers my photo of Michael, and it's been on the ARIA charts for like 100 years. And
A,
so,
a mini Freddie, just a
yeah,
fantastic entertainer. Fantastic,
exactly.
fantastic entertainer.
Did
Um,
you ever see them live?
Yeah, I did. Part of my drama is in my old age, because I did a lot of
Yeah,
other stuff apart from music. I came into music in the last 15 years. I'd
yeah,
managed a couple of bands and all that throughout, like we all do, because I was a manager and all this sort of stuff, and they
yeah,
asked for me to do
yeah.
it. So, the normal manager, so I just had management skills. But I forget half of the stuff because there's so much that we did and so much that we saw. Only some pivotal stuff. Like I saw Skyhooks when I was I don't know if you know who Skyhooks are, Australian band,
No,
and when I was 14 they were supports, and they ended up being a great Australian band, and I'd gone to a Colester Social. So those sort of things, those sort of moments stick out, or Cold Chisel had about 25 final concerts, or so you saw about half a dozen of those sort of things. But
but
it's all personal, because
right,
basically your great moment is your great moment. When you talk
right,
about your fuck moments, you generally
yeah,
can't share them. When you say to
right,
someone, "You've got to see this movie," someone else sees it and they don't get what you saw, or you got to
yeah,
see this video. Like I talk to people about Sarah Bareilles, "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road" as a like a video that's going to make you into a advertiser, because it's like
yeah,
the darkened screen, and she's just got a piano,
right,
there's no effect. And Elton John said it was better than his version, that sort of situation. So they're like fuck moments for you, but when you go to share them, someone watches it for 30 seconds and they say, hang on, and they go out of the room to get a cup of tea or something, and you just feel disappointed because why aren't you feeling the same sort of thing that I'm feeling?
yeah. No, I get it.
And it's a
Again,
pretty personal thing. If you could shoot any music artist alive or dead, who would you choose and why? I mean, you're not going to
Bowie,
shoot them dead. They're going to be alive when
Bowie.
you shoot them.
No, I know the question. I know the
Oh, hey,
question very well.
Bowie.
Bowie.
You
So
never
that's
got
another.
You never got the chance?
So I'll tell you another quick story, my Bowie story.
No,
So I
you
shot a
won't.
lot
You
of.
just tell me another story. Forget about the quick business.
Now, I got to tell you the Bowie story because it's
Tell me,
great.
tell me, tell me.
So I shot a lot of musicians who played with him, and of course, I was like, "Hey, hook me up, bro," And so when a couple weeks after Bowie died, I had lunch with my mentor, Michael Lippman. Michael managed George Michael for 30 plus years, managed everybody who was anybody, uh, all the producers. He's legendary in the music industry to this day. His son runs the business now. So Michael, a couple weeks after Bowie dies, Michael and I meet for lunch in Century City and at the Intercontinental, and we're sitting in the middle of this restaurant eating our lunch, nice and crowded restaurant. And I said, Michael, it's really sad I mean, I shot everybody for this man. Every client he had, he sent to me. So I sat there and I said to him, it's really sad about this Bowie thing. I'm really bummed. I never got to him. And Michael goes, yeah, I was just talking to his assistant yesterday and just to check up on everything. And I wanted to see if everything's okay. And I just, Michael, you knew Bowie? And he goes, yeah, he was my first client. I go, I'm staring at him. I stand up in the middle of the restaurant and I scream, fuck. And he looks at me like, what the fuck's your problem? And everybody in the restaurant just stops. And I sit back down and I go, in 35 years, you've known this man and you never sent him to me. You never recommend I shot everybody. I went crazy for like 2 minutes. And then he goes, you got to calm down. I go, I can never talk to you again, Michael. I can never talk to you again. And he just, oh, calm down. He goes, I'm so sorry. I never thought you'd want to shoot David Bowie. I'm
Uh,
like, really? you know. So luckily he's
probably,
I love Michael. I still talk
probably
to Michael
one
to
of
this day.
one of five of the most influential artists of probably all time. In the again in the changes that he brought when he came in the '70s, and
Yep.
just with the makeup and the glam and all that sort of stuff. He
Just,
was a big one
and
for
all
me
I can,
because I was a teenager growing up with him.
yeah. I just to this day, Michael, like I said, Michael's like a father figure to me and I love him to death. And he just sent me an email today. I've told him every time we've talked about it, I will never forgive you for this, Michael. I'm never ever going to forgive you for not telling me about this. I go, you've done a million great things for me, but the one thing, so I've always had a hit list. I've always had a hit list of the artists I want to get to. And it's changed through the years, of course, because I get to somebody or somebody dies. But my hit list right now is I want to shoot Billie Eilish so bad, so bad. And Snoop Dogg has been on my list for 30 years and I need to get to him.
I saw a thing on because Quincy's passing.
Yeah.
They had a Snoop Dogg thing on Letterman, a video that came up, and
Yep.
he had this massive, Snoop Dogg diamond thing by his microphone and all that. He's a cool dude, and Eilish is another one of those. But the brother, Phineas is,
He's amazing.
he's a creative genius, and so you can
Yep.
see that, that's gone some way to, Eilish. She's a bit of a phenomenon, isn't she?
I said to my friends, my young friends, like they're in their 20s, and I'll say like, yeah, I shot so and so, and they're like, Chris, you're old. It doesn't matter. We don't
Yeah.
know those people. But so I said to everybody, that's why I need to shoot Billie Eilish because it'll give me street cred to all the 20 somethings and the teenagers. Will think
Do-
I'm cool again,
and they'll look at your old stuff. Do you still have long-term aspirations?
Oh, big time. So, if big time. I'm working on a TV series right now about my greatest hits project. It's like a reality docu-series. I'm working on a 1 hour drama I'm writing on. I'm gonna shoot till the day I drop. I have a goal for next year. We want to do a George Michael Faith exhibition in London next year, the biggest one ever. I'm a workaholic. I'm not married and I don't have kids. I have my work, and my work is my wife, and she's a bitch, and she makes me work all the time. So I don't. Again, my motto is go big or shut the fuck up. Our goal for 14 years now, our goal is the last greatest hits exhibition it's going to be in 2 years. We're doing the last one at Madison Square Garden. That's my goal. It's never been done, but I'm
Got
going
to
to rent
get
that
that,
place
Chris.
out.
I'm a believer in You can do anything you want to because basically in this quantum existence, you can create. Dispenza talks about it when he talks about the mind. You can create outcomes.
Yeah.
That's what you do. That's what you have the power to do. So create your. I'm sure you're going to create the outcome, and we'll be. We're just little minnows over here, but we'll be
But
looking at
no, but it's like
according
I
to.
I I always like to tell people I grew up with, a work ethic since I was a child, basically. But it wasn't until I met my business manager who like basically adopted me, and she gave me the quote that I live by. I live by this quote. I talk about it all. I share it to everybody, and I'll share it to you and everybody. It's simple. It's the simplest quote in the world. Shut the fuck up and do the work.
Yeah,
And, I come from Hollywood. Everybody talks about what they're going to do. I'm like, shut up and just do it.
just get it
And
done.
I get up every day and I shut the fuck up and I do the work. And a lot of people don't. And I believe in it. And doing the work means being healthy, taking care
Yeah.
of your health, mental, physical, spiritual, doing the financial, just doing the work. Life is a job, baby. Let's get to work and have fun.
Yeah. I only balk against that from one perspective. And that is, in my view, that collaboration with the moment, you can be Mandela in jail and you can still have
Right.
full existence. So even if it doesn't work, or even if this doesn't, and you're not looking after it, and you're having a bad, and you're doing whatever you're doing for whatever reason, because we all react to different things that have happened in our
Right.
life. Some people have been abused, some people have been in wars, some people have been in Gaza, some people have been in
Oh, yeah.
Auschwitz. So they have different reactions to what take place. So if you just accept that everything's going to take place and you're going to collaborate with whatever that is, well, then you move on and then you just let your skill, which you've got plenty of, display itself. And then you'll create whatever you
Yeah,
create and go in whatever direction you
you're 100% right. And I just have, I just have I've been through hell and back a million times, as I like to say. I have over a million miles, frequent flyer miles to hell.
and
And
and we benefit from that.
yeah, and
Okay.
because of it, as I like to say, that's why my young friends and a lot of friends come to me because I have all this wisdom, and that's what I try to pass on to everybody. If I knew all this when I was 21, oh my God, life would have been a lot better. But
Okay.
I didn't,
No, I don't
you
think it
know.
would have been better myself, but that was not, what's another
Uh,
discussion.
as I like to say, if I'd known all this, then I should have not picked up a camera. I would have told my 10-year-old Chris, don't pick up a camera. Forget this camera stuff. Stay in San Jose, get a job in Silicon Valley, become best friends with Steve Jobs, and then be Apple employee number 4, and I'd be a billionaire. But no, I had to go have some
You know,
stupid dream.
I couldn't imagine, having had different experiences in my life. Money's about the last thing I'm
Oh,
interested
I,
in around
me
it.
too.
Now,
I'm
as
sorry.
I think Gandhi says, money be wasted on myself. Okay, we're gonna get. I can see you getting a bit restless there, so we'll get to some final.
Yeah,
No, you're fine. Okay,
yeah, I'm good.
a bit all the photographers have been waiting for, right? They're all sitting here pensively waiting after an hour or whatever it is. What piece of advice would you give to a photographer starting out, and what would you say to someone that's experienced?
The same thing I say is the both for both.
What's that?
And I've said this for over 30 plus years. And I start my lectures with this saying, it's simply this: photography is like sex. The more you do it, the better you get. And you can't do it alone. So you can't jerk off and think you're going to get good at fucking.
No,
So
you
you
don't.
have to, so you can, and you can't watch porn all day thinking you're going to get good. Same thing with photography. You can't just sit there and do it alone. You have to collaborate. You got to meet people. You got to be curious. You got to get out and do it and live it. It's not a job. It's not a career. It is a life. It's a process.
And did you find, like, you'll find Alice Cooper or Steel Panther or whatever, they know how to stand for the camera and they look
Right.
down the barrel of the camera. Do you think that that's a relationship with the photographer or just something they do with every photographer? So in your case, did you find that the artists found you and came to you when you were
Well,
shooting?
so yeah, but there's different it's different for everything and everyone. One of the things I learned early on was when I was shooting for modeling schools when I was a teenager, that really helped me develop my techniques to get people to relax in front of the camera. It taught me how to get people to pose. It taught me how to get people. That was like like the best education for like 6 years. I did that. I made good money doing it too, but it taught me how to deal with people. Getting a person to relax in front of the camera. I watch my assistants do it, or I watch people do it. I just laugh. They don't even know what they're doing. And I have taught that a lot. My one of my old assistants just did a portrait of me for a project he's doing, and Gary's one of the best photographers going these days. And we talked about that. He's like, I learned so much just watching you communicate with the subjects. I said, that's people don't take that for granted. So I just believe in, like, again, it all comes back to practice makes improvement. Practice, practice, practice. Over and over again. And I'm just a firm believer in that. That's why I tell people when I was a kid, my teacher told me, you have to learn your camera equipment so well that you can shoot it blindfolded and be able to take pictures while you're blindfolded. And so all these years later, I'm like, no, you don't. You have to know your equipment so that when you're so drunk and fucked up on drugs, you can still take pictures. And that's the way I looked at it. It was like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to, get fucked up. Let's take some pictures. And the pictures still come out great. You have to, it's practice, man. Practice, practice, practice. I'm still practicing. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Still
Okay.
haven't figured.
Just before we finish with some final short questions,
Yeah.
what's the
Oh,
what's the career highlight?
oh,
If you had to pick one thing, what would you say the one
you're
thing
tough.
is?
I would say the first, well, that there's too many, but the first greatest hits exhibition we did in Los Angeles in 2017 is right up there because a lot of my friends were there. There was over 1,000 people on opening night. I had incredible performance. It was like my wedding, my memorial, my opening night, and all rolled into one. And my senior prom, and it was magical. And there's a trailer on my website and on my app you can look at. It was just magical. And I had all my friends from all my different. I travel in different bubbles, as I like to say, and a lot of them were there. I got to celebrate my love and my passion. That's what I love about my exhibitions, and we'll be doing here in Sydney and Melbourne. I get to celebrate and say, "Yeah, baby," and then everybody comes in there and I get to say thank you, and I love it. This is what I always tell people. I'm at that age and that point now. This is really important to me.
For all you people out there that think about Chris, who's had every experience known to man since the 80s, just spoke about something that was the highlight that was when he was almost 60. And he's just traveled every
It's
band
true.
known to
Wow,
man.
wow.
So that's something
So,
that's
like, just so you know, I have this fantasy, and I've been telling everybody about this because I don't know when it's going to happen. I hope it happens while I'm alive, but I want to do a retrospective on my life's work. I cannot wait for that moment, like, because people don't know what I've done. And like I said, the music work is just the third. And I want to do a retrospective, and it's going to be called Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. And it's going to scare the shit out of everybody. It really
beautiful.
will.
Beautiful. I look forward to it. I look forward to it. Okay, here's some final questions. I've got three personal things and then some favorites. What's the
Okay.
craziest thing you've ever done?
I can't say.
Yeah, you coming? Yeah, you're in Australia. The police will stop you from traveling.
Yeah, well, that's
Keep
one of
expecting
my
someone to say, I chopped up four people one time when I was nine.
no. I've done a lot of I live by the motto, and I teach this to all my young friends, is to be crazy. Be fucking crazy. Don't be stupid. Crazy is good, stupid is bad. I live by that. The first crazy thing I'll tell you was the first time I did drugs, did ecstasy. I was with Elton John and George Michael. Elton gave me 2 tabs of ecstasy. We were in Hawaii, and that changed my life. And to this day, I always tell people I thank George. George taught me how to have a good time, and I thank him for that. And that started a. I spent the next few years catching up to everybody else had been doing shit for a long time.
That'd be a highlight for most people in their life. Well, you can't think of that.
And here's the thing too. I got pictures too. I got photos of that night. So who else can say that?
Again, for someone growing up through their era, especially Elton
Yeah.
John, because he came along in the 70s.
Yeah.
I can remember traveling when I was a teenager in a car, and we were poor, and we were traveling up to our cousin's place, and what was that? Freedom? No, Philadelphia Freedom must have played on the radio 100 times when we were driving up there. This is in the 70s because it had just come
Yeah.
out. just playing, and the way they did radio then was just cycle,
Yep.
cycle, cycle. And all the albums that he came out with, Tumbleweed Connection, Honky Chateau, they were all pivotal for me as they moved through. But Michael was the same. When they started and all that, they were such distinctive characters. And
Yep.
this gay thing came out, and then he's
Yeah.
caught in the toilet, and all these different bullshit bloody things that come out and all this
Cares.
stuff. It's the start of, drama and in the sexual sort of revolution.
Right.
But they were pivotal figures, but they were both, again, Elton came out with all these different bloody videos, and Michael had the best voice. I mean, you just can't beat.
Yeah.
And so they were
No, I
pivotal
agree.
figures.
And I tell people like, I was lucky. Grew up, like you said, I grew up on Elton John. So meeting him I had dinner with him the first night in Hawaii, and I'm just shocked that I'm sitting at a dinner table saying, Elton, can you please pass the salt? It just
And he
didn't make sense.
doesn't suffer fools.
Yeah.
If he doesn't like you, he'll tell you straight away, fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was some good times, and like I said, this is when I think about writing a book, but instead, luckily I have all
You
these
have to.
stories I have these stories on my app and on my websites. There's my app. I'm so proud of my app. Download it, people, because you'll see all the stories, proof sheets, so much more.
Get
And
someone,
it's like
get
about telling
someone,
these stories.
get someone for a month and talk to them, and then they can write it. Don't you worry about
Yeah.
writing. They can put it
I,
together,
I've talked to people about that.
prove it. Okay, what's the one topic you can talk about for hours?
Music.
Everything.
No,
Sorry,
music.
music. Okay,
I always tell people I'd rather talk about when I do interviews, I'd rather interview a musician than a photographer.
thanks very much. So, what is this just a waste of time for me? Is it? I don't. I sort of find that some musicians. I've had musicians that I've interviewed, and they'll
Yeah,
like turn up and they'll start and they'll be all smoky and they'll be all
yeah,
whatever, and they'll ease up over time and you end up somewhere, or some will just go, "Yep, no, what did you do here? This, what about
yeah,
that?" And you sort of go,
yeah.
"Fuck, what did you turn
I
up?"
know, I know.
What's the thing you like most about yourself?
Um, my work ethic.
And it
That
continues.
nobody outworks
I
me.
I agree. I worked 24/7 and it's not work. So I never have any
Yeah.
drama about,
The
and it's
the
not
day I
about,
moved to LA.
but in my case, it's not about making a quid. Now we'll probably do things that'll scale and all that sort of stuff in time.
Right.
But I get to
Yeah.
them when I get to them rather than I've got to force myself to get to them because freedom's essential. You've got to be free. And if you're
Right.
bound to some sort of an outcome, you can't do whatever it is that you do. But I've got to do what you
I
said. I wanted to do this personal podcast about
right.
consciousness, and I've continued to put it off, put it off, put it off because I keep having this thought about why. And then I saw this Billy Connolly thing at the end of his life, like he's about 80 or whatever he was near the end of his life, and he's just up there in this short, YouTube, and he says, just talk about whatever you do, just talk about yourself. Don't worry about what you fucking say or how good or how bad. Just talk about yourself. And if you do that, everyone will fucking listen. And
Yeah.
that was the message. And I thought to myself,
Yeah.
and you just said now, your motto, and the thing you've lived your life by. So see, these things are inspiring even for an old guy.
Yeah. But I just feel I've always had a work ethic. I know I can't control who hires me, who doesn't hire me, who likes me, doesn't like me. But what I can control is how hard I work, how smart I work, and what I do and how I do it. When I was moved to LA the first day, I said to my Jack, no one's going to outwork me. And he says, what do you mean? I said, no one. I go, if Annie Leibovitz is shooting and working 15 hours a day, I'll work 17 and tell the bitch to fuck off. No one's going to outwork me. If you tell me Avedon is working 12 hours a day, I'll work 14.
I get
And
it,
that's
but
been my
what I'll
strength.
there's another question just before I get into these last ones.
Yeah.
How then, what I find, it must be hard to have a personal relationship with you, a deep personal relationship, not a personal relationship, because I'm sure that
Right.
everybody that you're with, that you've just spoken about today, likes you and
Yeah.
likes what takes place, etc. But that deep personal relationship, because you'd be a fierce uh, partner in terms of
Right.
you'd be going. and keeping on going and keeping on going, and it'd be hard for someone to keep up. Have you had that experience with deep,
When I was younger, yeah. Yeah, when I was younger, yeah, it was hard. It was hard because my priority for everything was photography. Being the best, being the great. And so when I up until I was probably like 40, I was just again a workaholic and stuff. Now, since probably 40, I've had some experiences where now I know when and when
more
not
present?
to, and when turn it on and turn it off. And I can, I also I haven't been very healthy the last few years. So I got to take care of my health. And, so a lot of that stuff, when you
Chris,
get older,
you're
we're
not
not 20 anymore.
you're not meditating, are you?
Yeah, I call it taking a nap.
No, no, no. You're not taking a nap. If you want to be healthy, meditate. That's the way you'll get to back to perfect health.
Yeah,
Believe me.
I know.
All right,
I've done it.
here's some final questions that everyone hates. So I'm going to give them to you, and you can hate them just like everyone else. Favorite album.
What?
Favorite album.
Oh, that's easy.
Is it?
Earth, Wind, and Fire, Gratitude.
Favorite artist.
I'll give it to Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Favorite movie.
Oh, Funny Face.
Really?
It's the movie that inspired me to be a photographer.
Wow. Barbara Streisand. Yeah.
No, 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 no. Audrey Hepburn and Fred Astaire. You're
Funny
thinking of
face.
Funny Girl. You're thinking of
Oh,
Funny Girl.
okay. Funny face. What was funny face about then?
It was about Fred Astaire plays a photographer who a fashion photographer named Richard Avery, and Richard Avedon was the technical consultant on the film. And it's a photographer goes into a bookstore, meets this girl, turns her into a model. They fall in love and live happily ever after. And
My God,
that's been my dream since I was 10.
I am finding it somewhere and watching it.
You
Um,
have to. It's a great,
I will.
best movie ever.
I certainly will. Favorite place to visit? Melbourne and Sydney. No, no, no.
No, my favorite is where I am right now, Bondi Beach.
Bondi is cool, man. I used to go down there. I used to live in Darlinghurst, which is right by the city, and
I know. I
I
was
used
just
to
there last night.
I used to just drive down to Bondi as the local shopping centre. They had that bloke go around and kill everyone there at that Bondi
Yeah,
shopping
it was
centre.
on my birthday. It was on my birthday this year. Really bummed me out.
Terrible. Favorite venue to shoot?
Oh, back in the day, I don't think it's around anymore. It was in New York City. It was called the Roseland, and I did a few shows there. And there was also yeah, Roseland. And in LA, I'd probably say the Palladium.
Did you get to Nashville and all that sort of stuff?
I did it probably a dozen times.
And to hang out or to
No, to
predominantly
shoot,
get
I did my
shoot?
first shoot. I shot my first shoot was in '85. I shot Tommy Lee, and a drummer named Larry London, who was one of the greatest of all time. Played with the Everly Brothers. And then I shot a couple album covers there with different artists, some country people here and there, things like that. Never shot a live show. Never went to the opera house.
Favorite food?
Um, Mexican.
Favorite drink?
Um, that's a good question. I'm not
What
supposed to.
is that the
I should.
first good question I've asked after
Yeah, because it's
sharing?
like I don't really drink much alcohol anymore, and I'm trying to take care of myself. So I'd say the Starbucks makes these things called they're frappuccinos.
Yeah, yeah,
just a lot of sugar, which I love. I'm a sugar addict.
yeah, aren't we all? Favorite favorite person in history?
Um,
You've met me now, so I can answer.
I would say I'd say Richard Avedon.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, he was just if you look at his work, it's as good today as
And you
probably the
must
day
have
he took it.
spoken to him.
No, I dreamed I I I got people I talked to people who knew him and got secondary stories and stuff like that back in the day when he was alive.
Was he
My
similar? Did he have a similar approach to you
From
and
what I was
work ethic?
told, yeah, and if you there's some interviews on YouTube with him that are amazing. There's a documentary, I think it's called Darkness to Light, I think it's what it's called. That's really good to watch. He just there was nobody like him. And Irving Penn was a lot more quiet. He didn't say a lot. It was more like, I'm old school like that. I always tell people, I don't, when I was younger, it's all about let the pictures do the talking. You want to know if I'm good? Go look at my photos. I don't have to tell you I'm good.
No, that's true. And do you have a tattoo?
Uh,
What's your favorite?
None of them. And I have these.
None of them.
Well, these are probably my favorite because this there's a quote. I collect quotes. I think I said that earlier. There's a quote I love that I learned when I was young, and the quote is curiosity informs my passion. And that's my curiosity, questioning everything, and that's my passion.
How about far better to dare mighty things to inglorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to take rank with those poor spirits that neither suffer much nor enjoy much, because they live in the great twilight that knows not victory nor defeat.
What is that from? Is that
Teddy,
Gladiator?
Teddy Roosevelt, 1899.
Oh. My
My father was a Marine. He came from
uh,
Montrose, Colorado.
my favorite quote is life is difficult. It's more difficult when you're stupid.
It is. It is. Uh, and just before we go, uh, what's happening over there, man?
Oh, don't. Don't.
That's another 4 hour conversation.
Exactly. I've been telling everybody, I've been telling my friends here, if things go south back home, I'm going to apply for political asylum here.
Well, I think that the late sort of word is that it's going to be okay, probably, but
I'm not
not
going to
proven.
breathe until it's confirmed.
It's not proven, but gee whiz. It's like a stark contrast. Like we're talking about consciousness and all that sort of stuff, and people are making a choice. Even if you hate one side, the left, even if you hate them, they're not standing up and saying the things that the right are saying, and they're not doing what the right have been doing and all that sort of stuff. So it's a bit of a stark. But I think that they're probably all the polls and all that are probably favoured by the people on the right that want the outcome for the financial purposes.
Right. I'm from the school of George Carlin when it comes to politics. He was a
He's a
hero of mine. He was a
superstar,
genius. He was a
superstar,
genius. And when he
a
talks about the
philosopher
yeah, but
in
when he
music.
talks about there's a whole, routine he did about the owners and the owners of this country, that country. The governments are an illusion that they're there to work for us when they don't. They work for the owners and it's sad, and um like I tell my young friends, I just worry about what they're going to grow up in. We had the 60s and the 70s, yeah, and the 80s and the 90s, but who knows what the future is going to be.
Yeah, well, I think that we had the benefit of stopping. So, when we were
Yeah.
growing up, everything stopped on the weekend or everything stopped and you could be with family for a period or whatever. There's no
Yep.
stopping now in any sense. And so the
No.
point I make is if you want to, the only two things you ever have to do in your life are stop and sit. So if you
Yeah.
have drama, just stop. And this is the Buddhist impermanence. It's going to
Yeah.
pass. Everything will pass. Everything will pass. So you just
That's why every morning I'm here, I go for a walk at the beach. I sit on a bench for 30 minutes, just sit
perfect.
and
Well,
look at
that's
the ocean.
meditative. That's meditating.
Well, I think I like just look at the young girls. So yeah, okay, it's
But
meditative.
even so, if you actually the only extension I would put to that from my perspective is
Yeah.
what I've learned through meditation over all the years is that
Yeah.
it actually connects you to source. So the thoughts that
Right.
you have are actually like constructive or move forward thoughts. They're not
Yeah.
thoughts about fear and worry and all that sort of stuff. And that's because you've stopped and you're not trying to think. So the things that come in are free to just come in as a result of who you are.
Right.
So if you sit there and you just allow yourself to be in that space
Yeah.
without concerning yourself with anything that's taking place and you're present to the situation, eventually what will take place. And then if you talk about it from the chi point of view, that's when the physical recovery happens. Because in
Right.
the chi perspective, one side of the brain comes off and you've got all the chi in rolling around the system. The only thing I'd suggest to you is stick your tongue on your palate when you're sitting there so that the chi can flow through the body because
Okay.
that's the connection through the head. Anyhow, enough.
Right.
This has been a pleasure, man. This has been an absolute.
Thank you.
I'd love to think that we could communicate again at some stage if necessary, one
Anytime.
way or the other. So,
No, anytime. Seriously, I always tell them that's why I'm doing this series of exhibitions. I tell people I just want to meet people. I'm running around the last few years meeting people, building relationships. If there's anything you need some help with something, you let me know.
well, we've got a
It's
lot of
like,
photographers, and I would think that it'd be great at some stage. We plan on having a sort of a photography show every week so that we sort of introduce photography, try and build
yeah.
people's perceptions of photography up again. It'd be great at some
Well,
stage.
just so you know, I have a group back home. A friend of mine I met that does this. They do a like a Zoom group chat. He puts this whole thing together with photographers, and every Friday they all get together and talk about what their work and do stuff like that. I also there's some photography groups that I help here. I'm doing a lecture at the end of November here at the university. I'm doing my first workshop in January in Melbourne. I'm that's what I'm
So,
here for, man. I'm here to help.
whatever you need from us,
Yeah.
when our collaborators. So
Okay.
all you need to do is contact or send something through, and we'll promote whatever you want us to promote.
I will. I
And
definitely will. I
and
appreciate that.
from that perspective, it's like, consciously you just put it out. It's a bit like the universe works it out for
Yeah.
you. All you do is you put it out. So this is
Yep.
just a vehicle, whether it's small, big, or whatever. Because one of the things I also get across is, sometimes one person picks something up, a bit like in the movie Yesterday, when when
Hmm.
when Sheeran was watching the morning program, and then he went across and he got him
Right.
to go on the tour. Only one person has to see it, but they could be a pivotal
Right.
person that connects up this situation and opens up to an opportunity. So, and
Exactly.
we've got a pretty purist sort of following by virtue of the fact that we never really tried to clickbait our way through to outcomes.
Right.
Just we're purely
No,
music and our own sort of
I
stuff.
got you.
So I'll give. It's easy to find us, anyways. Thank you,
Okay.
brother. Been a
Thank you.
pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Now share the YouTube
I will. Oh,
because
God, yeah.
consciously, a lot of artists don't do it because we don't have a big following or whatever the situation is. And I think to myself, consciously, it's not about the numbers, man. It's about getting the word out. It's a bit like
No, no. I just did a podcast a couple weeks ago with a 13-year-old kid from England. And
fantastic.
his name's Logan. He's the coolest kid. He loves music. And he interviewed me and he put it out. I'm all about making noise. Let's go. It's all about making noise.
And we'll keep doing so. And as we hope to expand in different ways, if you can piggyback off anything, just yell
Yeah.
out. We only
I'll
tell.
let you guys know. I
Thank you,
appreciate it,
brother.
sir. Have a great one.
You too. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye-bye.